Welcome to the third installment of my recall series. This week I'd like to talk about using a whistle for your recall. I think having a whistle is just kind of cool in having that special sound that connects you and your dog and has them come running back to you all excited, but it also has some function. That function for me is the volume that I can whistle at and the fact that that whistle's generally going to be a sharper sound than my voice, and it's going to cut through a lot more environmental noise. For example, at the beach with the surf and the wind, or perhaps you're in an urban area and there's traffic, that whistle is going to carry further, and your dog's more likely to hear that often than your voice in those types of situations. So it does have some value as well as just being kind of a cool thing to have. So to train the whistle recall, there are a few ways that we can train that out. Number one, just training it like you've done with your standard recall. However, if your dog has a strong recall, we can start using a cue transfer. Now, the cue transfer basically is issuing the cue that your dog knows, i.e. come here or come, and then immediately following that with your whistle, and then marking and rewarding as your dog gets to you. This is because they're pairing the two things together. They're going to make that association, and over time we can run some tests where we just issue the whistle and take note of what happens. If our dog comes back enthusiastically, chances are they've figured it out and they've got that whistle down, and we just need to maintain the reinforcement of that over time and then practice in the wild and slowly raise the distractions, etc., just like we've talked about with emergency recall and as you've probably done with your standard recall. Now, you can also train this using associations, and generally they learn through associations anyway, and they're associating the rewards we're giving them along the way. But there's lots of everyday opportunities that you can reinforce your recall, and this works for your whistle recall or your standard recall anyway. Either will work just fine. But one of my favorite things that I've done with mine over the years has been to catch them around feeding time when they're out in the yard or in the living room. They're just not paying attention to me. Generally for me, it's out in the yard. If they're in the living room and they hear me getting the food, they're coming anyway. But I will go ahead and give my whistle, and then now that sound of the food hitting the bowl, that's going to get my dogs every single time. In fact, they're outside the room now pacing because they heard that. So whistle, food in the bowl, they'll generally come running. Every single day, every time you feed, if you're doing that, they're very quickly going to put two and two together and come running, because that's jackpot right there, the food in the bowl. Same thing if you're gearing up and you've got like a plastic bag of treats or something like that, issue the whistle, and then as you're crinkling the bag to get those treats out, that's a familiar sound. That one is associated with really good things for your dog, and so it makes it very easy for them to pair that up with the good thing and start coming back to you just because of that whistle. So it's pretty easy to train, and I hope that you consider training a whistle recall with your dog. If you're doing it, any of these exercises at home, if you're playing the recall games, or you've got working on your emergency recall or practicing your whistle recall, I love to hear about what you're doing and how you're faring with all of this, or shoot a short video and go ahead and give a comment. I'd love to see it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Ooh.